Hello and welcome to the exactly 31 minutes of heaven we call the D1Baseball.com weekend preview. I am your host, Michael Patrick Rooney. Tonight's episode brought to us by our good friends at S2 Cognition. S2 delivers a revolutionary approach to helping athletes understand how in-game decisions impact their performance from youth levels all the way to the pros. If you don't make good decisions on the field, it ain't happening for you. It's not going to happen for you. But I'll tell you who it is happening for is my good friend Joe Healy, my good friend Kendall Rogers. Gentlemen, happy Wednesday evening. How you doing, boys?
Doing
Doing great.
Doing well. Ready for another weekend of college baseball. We're don't look now, but like this is I think this is like the half after this weekend we'll be halfway through the regular season.
Yeah, it's crazy. This is weekend
That's
6,
insane.
correct?
Oh, is this 6? Okay, so after next weekend.
This
But
is
still,
week
like,
6.
it's basically halfway. All right, boys.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about what we're doing tonight. The three of us. So our good friend Aaron J. Fitt normally picks the weekly series that we all select and get lambasted over on Twitter, which is fun. But our good friend Fitzy, it can't be with us tonight. So we are going to pick the series live. We're each going to pick 3 of them, and we're going to come to terms on a 10th series. We'll tell you why we like that series, but we may or may not make our picks. Here's what I want to start with. Real quick, inane banter, and then we'll get to the series. So I don't know where Fitzy is tonight. I don't know what has caused him to miss this call and miss picking the picks. But I'll tell you where I think he is. What I'm picturing, and I want you guys to do the same. I'm picturing the great Aaron J. Fitt is at a cigar bar in Durham, North Carolina, drinking like a whiskey sour with a flannel shirt on. Care to challenge, agree, or do you have a different visual? Kendall, what say you?
Well, I hope he just has that beautiful hair of his kind of flowing out wherever he
does,
is.
with product in it, certainly.
He's in Bowie's Creek, and I feel like that hair just goes really well with Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. I'll say that as someone who has never been to Bowie's Creek, North Carolina. Sorry, Justin Hair.
I haven't either, and I'm the worst for it. I'm disappointed that I've never been, honestly.
How much are we missing out on, Joe?
It's not a lot going on there, to be honest with you. But it's not that far outside of Raleigh. Like it's a pretty small little area, but it's really not that far from Raleigh. Like it's not quite a suburb, but it's really not too bad. And they're playing that as a neutral site. So he's at ECU Campbell, and they're playing it in Fayetteville, North Carolina, at a minor league park. Really nice minor league park out there. It's where I believe the Big South or SoCon, one of the two, has their conference tournament. So cool. Anyway, there you go. But if he's not breaking out the powder purples tonight for Aaron,
like that. If Fitzy's not going to be at a cigar bar with his flannel shirt on, then I do want him at that game. So that's good. You're forgiven, Fitzy. Well done, gentlemen. Let's do this. Let's play the feud. Let's pick these series. Coach Healy, you're going to lead us off. So we need 10 compelling series for weekend 6. What do you got in the one hole here?
We'll start off with the big one, Arkansas at LSU. That feels like the big one on the board here. It's the top answer on the Family Feud board, if you will. And I don't think I really have to say anything but that, but I will say something else, and that's that 2 really high-end offenses. I mean, that's going to be a big thing here. And then I'm kind of fascinated for both pitching staffs to take on those offenses for different reasons. For LSU, obviously, I'm going to love to see Skeens against an offense like Arkansas. That's going to be great. And also, LSU, neither of their other 2 guys last weekend, Floyd or Hurd, neither completed 4 innings. And that's probably okay with the way LSU is going to win games, but an Arkansas offense could give them some problems. And on the flip side, Arkansas pitching has really dealt pretty well with their injuries. They kind of keep going next man up, and it keeps working. I mean, last weekend they got a great start from Cody Adcock, his first start of the season, and Will McIntyre has stepped up, and Hagen Smith looked good out of the bullpen last week after we all kind of wondered why they were doing that. So there's just all kinds of interesting stuff with that series. So that feels like the obvious first one off the board.
Interesting. Do you think, Joe, before we go to Kendall, do you think anyone will have the guts to pick Arkansas? Of the 11 of us, I think.
I mean, we've got some.
Stitchhead will be the one.
Yeah, we've got some contrarians. Like Stephen Schock is on record as saying that he likes to go in there last and see which teams no one has picked, and then pick those teams.
Yes.
So we do have some contrarians in there.
Yeah, that's fair. Kendall, what say you? What are you going with series in the 2 hole here?
I'm going to go with A&M and Tennessee. I think this is a really big series for Tennessee. I think when you look at the Southeastern Conference overall, this is a league where you do not want to get behind the eight ball. And I think we look at Tennessee overall, they lose it. They not only lose a series, but get swept last weekend against Missouri. And so they go back home to play an A&M team who, we're still trying to figure out who the Aggies are, right? Tennessee this time last year was one of the nation's most prolific offenses. They're still hitting home runs this year, but they're 83rd in the country in batting average as a team. And granted, batting average is the only stat to look at, but compared to last year, that's a pretty sizable drop. And so they weren't very offensive against Missouri last week, and I'm interested to see A&M's rotation. Moving freshman lefty, Justin Lampkin into the rotation. He was really, really good out of the bullpen against LSU, shut that lineup down. Was pretty much the only pitcher all weekend that shut that lineup down. So they moved him to the rotation. They moved Chris Cortez back to a very familiar bullpen role. And so I think this is going to be a really good series. I think both teams will have a lot of urgency. And I think Tennessee realizes, especially with LSU on the horizon next weekend, they need to win a couple of games.
Yeah, it's so funny. Like, you could only look at the SEC series and fill out your voting card right here. Like, the whole league is so compelling.
We're going to mix it up, but you can definitely do that.
Yeah, I'm actually going to take us off the SEC.
Okay.
Boys, my third, I'm in the 3-hole here, and my pick is brought to us by our good friends at Blast Baseball. If you're ready to dominate at the plate, Blast Baseball is trusted by more MLB and college teams and trusted by Team Rooney than any other hitting solution. The Blast sensor attaches to the knob of any bat, providing real-time feedback with every swing. Go to blastmotion.com, enter the code D1Baseball at checkout. You save $10. We are excited about this partnership. So my pick in the 3-hole brought to us by Blast Baseball, Miami at Wake Forest. Wake Forest is just legit. Like many of us were skeptical in the preseason. I think what separates Wake Forest is they're elite. They've got elite talent on the mound and positionally. Most teams are lopsided one way or the other. They're not. I am worried about their defense still, but we'll see. Miami's off to this 5-1 start. Miami is actually the team in first place in the ACC. Coach Farron, our good friend Mike Farron, Mike from Scottsdale, if you will, Mike from Chicago. We talked to Gino Damari this week, and he said that they had been trying to have CJ Kafis be the 3-hole hitter, and he was just pressing. They moved him back to the 1-hole, and he's like National Player of the Week, goes off type of numbers. Andrew Walters is back throwing, and his numbers are comical: 16 punch outs, 0 walks. And they've kind of mixed and matched in the rotation. And so anyway, they'll have a heck of a test. It's not like they've beaten a bunch of dogs, though. They're 5-1 against against Virginia Tech and NC State. So I'm really intrigued by that. I think Wake is better, but Miami is a little scary. They got some star power. So there you go. Coach Healy, we're coming around to you for the 4-hole.
Yeah, quickly on, if Miami wins that series, first of all, it'd be an upset, but then I think we'd have to really kind of start to think differently about Miami. I think we're all kind of guarded about Miami right now. So, okay, so my series, I'm going to head out west. We're going to go Washington at UCLA.
Oh, love you, baby.
And I just think this is an opportunity for Washington. I almost don't even care if they win this series. Oh, that'd be great if they did, right? But it's on the road at UCLA. I'm kind of fascinated to see how well Washington plays here. Does UCLA clearly look like a better team, or does Washington kind of look like they belong on the same field with UCLA? Now, that could still be the case and they still lose the series. UCLA is a very good team, right? So it's less about the results here for the Huskies. And I think just kind of the smell test, for lack of a better way of putting it, to try to get a feel for just how good is this Washington team. They're 14-4. They won their first Pac-12 series, but it was Utah, and they do have a relatively soft schedule that they've played so far, and so their numbers are good, but it's hard to kind of gauge just how good they are. I think we're going to learn a lot about them this weekend.
Oh, I love that. Kendall, you've been on the Huskies for a long time, and this is kind of, to Joe's point, this is what cutting time for the Huskies.
No doubt, this is their chance to make a massive statement in a league that I feel like has a chance to be very wide open, although I think UCLA is really good.
Yes.
I think that one thing on UCLA that's interesting to me is, and we should not be surprised with the John Savage team, but their pitching staff this year, maybe especially once they lose Thatcher Hurd to a transfer, and they've graduated some guys last couple of years or sent them to pro ball, I guess. The pitching staff doesn't really have maybe the names that pop at you as much, but then you have a guy like Kelly Austin, who's just kind of I don't mean this in a bad way, but a program guy who's working with an under 1 ERA and holding hitters to a 179 average. Like, he's a guy who was a swing guy last year, essentially. Now he's pitching like one of the better pitchers in the West Coast and maybe the country.
Well, look at like Zach Petway a few years ago.
Yeah.
Kind of the same way, right? Like, as a Friday guy.
Yeah.
Hey, Kendall, before you go, one thing, like you like, I mean this in all sincerity, you were on Washington early, but it's really cool when the players that we're tipped off on are like actually legit. Like AJ Guerrero is hitting, 391, and we were told he was kind of like that like hitterish guy. Sam DiCarlo's kind of like the Rudy of that team, and he's balling out at second base. And then, Cam Clayton, we were told scouts were really on. He's got over 1,000 OPS. And it's like the Will Simpsons of the world, who are the famous guys, are, like not that big a deal. Kiefer Lord, he was a Division three transfer, right?
Who it kind of reminds me of, if you look back at last year, you remember Adam Mayer at Oregon? He got hurt, so he never really panned out. But I mean, Kiefer Lord, after the fall, really reminded me a lot of Adam Mayer. Like, there was a ton of buzz about him, and unfortunately Mayer got hurt. But I mean, Lord has kind of backed up all that hype around him in the fall. Well, I mean, they haven't played a great schedule. We'll see if that hype continues, and we'll see if that production continues at UCLA. But it's been so far so good.
Yep. Yes, sir. All right, go ahead, KR.
I won't go to the SEC just yet. Well, at least not till 2025. But I'm going to go Texas Tech at Texas.
Love it.
One future SEC team and the Longhorns. But I think this is a big series for both teams, obviously. But I think this is a telling series for Texas. Texas has been better since Globe Life and better since Fullerton. But I mean, this is a team that's won 11 straight. They have not played a very good schedule since the Fullerton series. Their weekend series the last 2 weeks were against Manhattan, New Orleans, and the games between that were against North Dakota State and Incarnate Word. So not exactly Texas Tech. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how Texas matches up with the Red Raiders. I think the Red Raiders, how they respond from that emotional series. We talked about the chippiness between those guys in Oklahoma State, like how they respond from an emotional series at home and then go on the road, by the way, and play another emotional rivalry series against Texas. So I think we'll learn a lot about both teams. We'll learn a little bit about Texas Tech's bullpen depth. I really liked it at Shriners, but they won't have Brandon Beckel this weekend after he was tossed against Oklahoma State. So I guess we're not making picks, but I mean, I like Texas Tech here, but keep an eye on this one. This one's scary because Texas Tech's getting away from where they've played really well the last 2 weeks at home, and they're going to a ballpark that's very much going to play kind of pitcher friendly as usual.
I'm with you, Kendall. Like this is, Texas Tech's got me a little confused. Like, this is the series normally when they they rise up and to kick Texas' butt because they get the chip on their shoulder. But do they still do that when Texas is kind of down? Texas is
they
not
have that killer
sexy.
instinct.
Yeah, that's right. Well said. Boys, I'm going to save the SEC because I think we're going to come back to it.
Sure.
Give me Sam Houston at Grand Canyon. I think that this is crazy. There's no way the WAC could be a two-bid league, or could it be a two-bid league? Because I think Sam and Grand Canyon are both regional caliber clubs. I'm just really interested to see how this plays out. I've picked against Grand Canyon several times this year and at my own peril. But regardless, I think it's an awesome series. Coach Healy, I think we're back to you.
Yeah. Ruined, you picked my pocket on that one. I had that one and thought that one was safe. But
nice.
Quick note on the Bearcats. Carlos Contreras is starting to come on a little bit. Like, he's not put up the numbers coming off of last year, having such big numbers. I mean, and look, it's one of those deals where the odds of him putting up those numbers again were pretty long to begin with, just because it's hard to put up numbers like that 2 years in a row. But he's starting to come on a little bit after a slow start, and that's an old position player group at Sam Houston. It's one of the reasons I like that team in the preseason, and perhaps they are on the come there. They're 6-1 in conference, so they're obviously playing fairly well. Okay, so because Rune skipped the SEC, I guess I'll go back there. We'll go Florida and Ole Miss. We talked about big series for certain teams. Ole Miss is another one. Now, Ole Miss has kind of created this situation where they might be the one team that might start off 0-6 in conference and think like, we'll be all right. We'll figure it out. Just given what we saw from them last year. But This series is at home. It's an opportunity for them to get right a little bit after Vanderbilt really just played them off the field last weekend, kind of surprisingly, because not only did Vanderbilt's offense do a number on Ole Miss pitching, but the Ole Miss offense just kind of disappeared after looking like a juggernaut the first 4 weeks of the season. So that's big for Ole Miss. Florida, how could you not love what you've seen so far from the Gators? The offense without Wyatt Langford feels a little bit lighter. When I saw them against Alabama, it felt like they were, still they were struggling to kind of figure out, okay, who are we plugging in here at the bottom of the lineup with that one more spot to fill in the lineup. So there's that, and Caglione had a tough weekend both on the mound and at the plate, and so now for him, I'm kind of looking for, okay, it's time for him to make the adjustment to the adjustments.
Mm-hmm.
So this feels like a big part of the year for him, and probably for Cade Kurland, even though Cade Kurland has yet to hit the adversity on the field. But those two guys are going to have to kind of be adjusting to the book being out on them a little bit more, and that's going to be important for the Gators as they look to win the SEC, which they could do.
Interesting. I like that very much. Very, very much. Do you guys know, not to interrupt our train of thoughts here, but do you guys know that the RPI wise right now, the Big Ten and the Big East are the 6th and 7th place conferences in RPI? Does that surprise you, or is it too early to be surprised?
The Big East, yes. The Big Ten, not really. The Big Ten's had some high level wins.
I just was worried about the anchors at the bottom, but maybe that has cleared itself up a little bit.
Well, I have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure even Penn State won a game against Miami on the road. Even though they've lost, some of these bottom teams have lost some series. They've won some singular big games.
Yeah, Rutgers is 9-1 over their last 10. By the way, look out!
They're playing better. They're playing much better.
Yep. All right,
Go ahead, Joe.
Big East, I think, is a function of a lot of. I think there are good clubs out there. UConn, obviously, Creighton is usually, but I think that's a function of a lot of road games for those teams. I think is where a lot of that RPI is. Not to say they couldn't, get 2 teams in regionals. They've done that before, but it's not a slam dunk there.
Yep. KR, what are you looking at here?
I'm going to make America proud. I'm going to stay out of the SEC again.
Ooh,
I'm going to go to Sun Belt and Texas State against Coastal.
That was on my board.
I am of the opinion the winner of this series should probably be ranked. Coastal's got some high-end wins so far this year. They've gotten off to a really good start. Their pitching hasn't been great, but you look at their offense with Peyton Eels and Derek Bender. Derek Bender was just a one-man wrecking ball against Wake Forest in midweek a couple weeks ago. He's got 6 bombs, hitting .359. They've got a really potent offense. I'll be interested to see their pitching against Texas State. I'm glad we're not making our picks because I need to check with Trouty at Texas State and find out if Zeke Wood is pitching this weekend. But guess what? Not having Zeke Wood did not matter against USM at home last weekend. They still won that series. But, I think when you look at Texas State, if they have Zeke Wood healthy, they have Levi Wells healthy, and then you look at that lineup with Jose Gonzalez and et cetera, I'm not embellishing here. I think this is an Omaha caliber club. If those 2 arms are healthy, because then you have Tristan Dixon on the back end of the bullpen. So, if they can get through a regional, they actually match up in a super really well against somebody. So I think this is an Omaha caliber club. I'm curious to see how Coastal looks against them this weekend.
I love that. Boys, so we get 2 more series to pick. I've got my 3rd pick, and then we've got to pick one together. So I'll read off some of the things on my board that are interesting to me. So NC State at Boston College, do we think Boston? So you basically have to make a decision in that series. Do you think BC's for real, and do you think NC State's just not as good this year? You kind of have to pick.
Yeah. Well, what it seems like, Runes, is this is a classic series where NC State just goes insane, right?
Yeah, totally.
You're thinking BC, they're the sexy team right now, and all of a sudden, it's like the Sean Astin scene where he looks at the girl and waves, and the guy looks at him and says, "Nope." It kind of feels like NC State's about to pull that on BC this weekend.
Yes. Duke at UNC is interesting. Florida State at Virginia is interesting. You have to kind of make a decision there. Hey, am I really down on Florida State, or am I sort of down? Or maybe Virginia's just too good. Maryland at UCF, that's not going to make the cut for me, but that's interesting. Xavier, who has swept Wofford, at West Virginia, who, had a tough midweek. Rutgers at UConn is very interesting to me. Northridge at Santa Barbara is interesting. DBU at Charlotte. Hey, Louisiana Tech at Western Kentucky. This is like, hey, Western Kentucky, are you really what your record says you are? Or, are you ready for this? Kent State at Central Michigan is really compelling to me. In the pack, Arizona at Arizona State, Wazoo at USC, San Diego at Santa Clara. I feel like we've got to address these two SEC series, though. Give me Mizzou at South Carolina. Like that, I just feel like that has to be picked. So I'll take that one, and then the three of us have to pick one more. But let me get Mizzou at South Carolina on my board here.
Yeah, that's a good one. It looks like Newbeck is probably out this weekend. They're supposed to find out more about him tomorrow. But if you're finding out whether or not he's out for the year on Thursday, that does not bode very well by having him this weekend. So they will not have Newbeck. And I saw him at Globe Life opening weekend, and it was, up to 91, 92, like plus competitiveness, pretty good overall stuff. So they're going to miss him, as Joe kind of wrote a couple of days ago.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to that one, Joseph?
I will. I will be in attendance in Columbia, South Carolina. I was actually planning to go there before Mizzou did what they did to Tennessee last weekend, because I hadn't seen South Carolina yet. And it was good to see Mizzou because, they're obviously the geographical outlier. So I had them come close to me to go. And now, with them doing what they did to Tennessee, suddenly I'm going to see a kind of a blockbuster series. So I'm looking forward to it. The Newbeck thing is big for Mizzou. I mean, they're high end guys. I think can play with just anybody in the league, but Mizzou's depth is where the question is going to be, and so they're going to need to find some other arms.
Yeah, Rooney, did you mention Duke and North Carolina?
I did. Yeah, I did a blow by of that one. That's interesting. I have that game. I have the Thursday night game for the worldwide leader. So I'm curious. I mean, Duke is massive. Like, Alex Mooney is their only normal sized person. Everyone else is just a monster. And so, like the question is that lead to power but create defensive issues? They did hit 10 home runs against Clemson and basically just homered them to death in game 3. And UNC's got star power, right? Carlson, Horvath, Honeycutt. I mean, Horvath and Honeycutt's become this duo that is like super compelling. How about this? UNC could have 2 kids go 20-20 this year. Horvath and Honeycutt are both going to hit 20 home runs and steal 20 bags.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that is crazy.
Can I give you a couple more series to keep an eye on?
Yeah, please.
2 that are top of mind I'll give you 3 that are top of mind for me. I think, I think this is a trap series for Vanderbilt, but going to Mississippi State the weekend they're honoring Ron Polk. Ooh. That's going to be an emotional weekend for that program. I think that's a beyond massive weekend for Mississippi State. Like, they're in big trouble if they don't take this series. I think that's an interesting series. I think Arizona State's really interesting to me. I know Arizona lost the series to UCLA, but it seems like the Sun Devils have started to play it a little bit better since that Irvine series. It almost seems like the Irvine series was a little bit of an aberration. They're playing better, so I always like a rivalry series. And then in the Big Ten, guys, Illinois at Nebraska. Both those teams, Nebraska's kind of rebounded. Illinois has gotten off to a really good start. They've got some high-end wins. So that's a really interesting Big Ten series, in my opinion.
Yep. So let's start to cut this down to a final list. So of the ACC series, NC State at BC, Duke at UNC, Florida State and Virginia. Let's pick one to advance to kind of like the finalists. Which of those ACC series do you like?
I like Duke and Carolina.
Same.
Okay. Yeah, I just looked at Carolina's stuff again and like, man, that is an old lineup. My goodness. Like, I don't think I really fully realized that they brought so much back in their lineup. And I know pitching is more the question with them, and Duke is kind of matching that with several transfers, like lower level transfers and just, big physical guys like Rooney said. So that's, and, not much of a road series. Duke's going to take the old trip down 15501 down to Chapel Hill. So
I like it.
That'll be a good one.
Hey, let's pick. Okay, so Vandy at Hail State or Kentucky at Alabama. I feel like Kentucky at Alabama is really compelling. Am I?
Yeah.
Do you guys share that thought?
Yeah, I mean, it's a weird thing where and again, this may be like overly dramatic, but I feel like there are a lot of teams in the SEC who in week 2 are already having like huge, or having like segue weekends, like Alabama, for instance. That's a program that has been fragile the last few years. Like anytime that they've thought they're going to make a move, they've kind of got knocked back down. And you just kind of wonder, like, about, after losing the Florida series and actually playing pretty well, Joe was there. And like the margin of that they lost the series in was very small. But I think if you go home this weekend and you lose a series of Kentucky, I think as a program that hasn't really done it, like I think that thought starts to creep in your head again. So I think that's a big series for Bama, and just in terms of their psyche.
I think too, like that feels similar to NC State and Boston College. That series feels a little to me like Kentucky comes in really riding high, and then they go on the road to Alabama, and Alabama asserts itself as the more talented team. On talent, I like Alabama's roster more. And so that does feel like a series where Kentucky, now they could win it. Kentucky could absolutely win that series, but they feasted on a Mississippi State team that was a mess last weekend. And, it won't be the same deal in Tuscaloosa against Alabama. And so anything could happen there, but it would not surprise me if Alabama just really asserts itself.
Okay. So let me ask you guys this. So I'm going to kind of focus on, so I'm going to give you guys a couple series to pick from. We got to get this group down to one. Rutgers at UConn, Northridge at Santa Barbara, one of the two, CUSA series, DBU at Charlotte, Louisiana Tech at Western Kentucky, or Kent State at Central Michigan. So again, we got to pick one of five. Rutgers at UConn, Northridge at Santa Barbara.
UConn.
You like that one, Joe?
Yeah, let's do that. Yep, let's advance that one. Survive and advance.
Rutgers at UConn. I like that too, especially with
Hashtag
Rutgers.
Northern Baseball.
Yes.
I'm sure
and
the
then
weather will be sunny and tropical in stores.
Do we like any other? Yeah, thank you. Do we like any of the other Pac-12 series enough to advance them? Arizona at Arizona State, Wazoo at USC. Compelling enough or meh?
No, but I do like the Washington State USC series.
It's
USC,
kind of like keep an eye on it.
USC wins this series, they're probably starting conference play with 4 series wins. That puts them very much in the postseason discussion.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's for either team. I think the team that wins the series is going to come out of it thinking like, "Hey, we've got a path here. We can make this happen."
Yeah, and same thing. Like Kent State at Central Michigan is really interesting to me, but I don't think I'm going to advance them. Like it's like too early in the MAC, right? Like this is almost like a preseason game for them. All right, so our 4 that we got to pick from, we got to pick one. Duke at UNC. You could throw NC State at Boston College as a play in here, but Duke at UNC, Kentucky at Alabama. Oh, I have NC State at BC, Rutgers at UConn. So Duke at UNC, Kentucky at Alabama, NC State at BC, Rutgers at UConn.
I go with Duke and North Carolina.
That was actually what I was thinking.
Okay, Duke and North Carolina.
Or in honor of Aaron skipping this podcast,
that's right.
Duke versus North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Ooh. All right, so we get a second ACC series. So we're going Duke at North Carolina. I like
Chapel Hill.
Chapel Hill. Thank you. All right, so our 10 series: Arkansas at LSU, A&M at Tennessee, Miami at Wake Forest, Washington at UCLA, Texas Tech at Texas, Sam Houston at Grand Canyon, Florida at Ole Miss, Texas State at Coastal, Mizzou at South Carolina, Duke at UNC Chapel Hill. Thank you to the great cigar smoking, flannel wearing Aaron J. Fitt.
Stephen Schock, ever smoked a cigar? I really want to know. I don't
probably
think he
not.
has.
I don't know. He'd be afraid to get light his hair on fire or something. So that's it. People. So a couple things. Never a bad time to get a subscription to D1Baseball.com. Now is a great time to do it. SEC Extra as well. You type in SAVE23 at checkout, you get 20% off. Let me share with you how to watch a college baseball game. What you do is you pop open 4 D1Baseball.com windows. Page 1, scores. Page 2, the fall report of one team. Page 3, the fall report of the other team you're watching. Page 4, the player page, where you can look up, okay, Vance Honeycutt, how many bombs and stolen bases does he have right now? Matt Horvath, where does he stand statistically? That type of thing. And our friends at 643 Charts have advanced stats in there. So you can see, has Vance Honeycutt's strikeout rate gone up or gone down? Or the website is just such an awesome resource for taking your enjoyment of a college baseball game and kicking it up a notch, as you like to say in the kitchen, Coach Healy.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. So
Shout out to Emeril Lagasse.
yeah, that's right. Emerald stole that from you, is what I've been told. But thank you. So, gentlemen, well done. We kept it tight. We did it. We're going to get Kendall on the way. That's it, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll catch you next time on the D1 Baseball Podcast.